number one longevity intervention is happiness. I'm a guy with low sperm count and my muscles, I can't get an erection. All the things, it's like, dude, that's all stress. There's a lot of mustache twirling, on yachts in the Bahamas with the vitamin guys going, hey, wait a minute, we could like repackage up all this the vitamin wellness, turn it into longevity, and like, what's out there? Oh, anything you want, get a podcaster that's influential, and you can sell anything.
Methylene Blue is the new biohacking miracle for brain longevity. I've never heard of Methylene Blue. What is it?
We don't have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system.
That's exactly right.
People who don't get enough sleep, they get more heart attacks, they get more dementia. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You can't hack your way out of sleep.
It's like oxygen.
If you do the things that they know work, they work.
Testosterone is all very homeostatic. It's a thermometer. It regulates itself. And I know you think it's low, but your sperm count's normal. It's probably right for you. Does it reduce microplastics?
Yes, by 50%.
Oh, wow.
I mean, Carney does some research at Harvard. You can reduce your microplastic by 50% pretty easily with a couple of interventions.
Good. That's
Very
encouraging because most people don't know that.
Men in their 40s are spending more on longevity supplements this year than their fathers spent on healthcare in a decade. Most of them can't sleep through the night, half of them can't maintain an erection past 45, and almost none of them have ever had their sperm count measured. So, what exactly are we optimizing for here?
Great question.
Yeah.
This is a podcast about longevity, and we're going to have Dr. Jordan Shlain on it. And Dr. Shlain is an old friend of maybe a couple of decades.
Okay.
A family practice guy who's gone to the stratosphere with medicine, digital health, and one of the few primary care physicians who say that the industry of longevity is off track. Jordan has been referenced in the New York Times in a piece on longevity that was really great, has been interviewed by Vanity Fair, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal about his views on longevity. And he has a Substack called Don't Listen to Me, which is phenomenal on the topic. And I think we can sort out some of the truths and some of the false issues going on with longevity medicine. And he's really a man in concierge medicine and digital health. It's really at the edge, and I'm so excited to have him on the podcast.
I am too. Longevity is a big topic right now, and it's a big topic with me. I can tell you, I want to longev as best I can, I'll tell you. Jordan Shlain, welcome to the podcast, Talk with Turek. Thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here. Glad to see you, Paul, and excited to dig into this very interesting topic.
Tell us about the seat you sit in, and you've been in primary care for decades. You know, we grew up in medicine as wanting to help people live longer. That's our goal. It's one of the primary goals of being a doctor. And you've also been in digital health. And what do these longevity clinics mean? And what are they missing? And what's your 30,000 foot view of this? What's happening?
Well, I mean, I think if you, can I go to the 50,000 foot view first before I go to the
Please.
So why are we here I want to get to the philosophical question. How did we get here? Because I can tell you in 2019, as I was, talking about prevention and longevity, and the word really wasn't used long. I mean, it was like anti-aging was probably the term that was used in 2019. So what happened? How did the flip get switched so quickly? And I think it has to do with the fact that in 2020, we all, right around March, we all saw that this thing called COVID was like, and remember, now it's like, oh, hantavirus, that virus, who cares? Like people are just like dismissing it. But back then, cities were shutting down, people were freaking out, people were dying. Yeah. And you saw it on TV or you saw it on the internet, whatever it was. And so I think that we all thought about our mortality for a minute in a way that we never have before, because it was like, shit, am I going to die? Is my mom going to die? If it's like the Spanish flu and 1 out of 3 people are going to die, like which one, look around, the person to the right or left or you, like who's not going to make it? Yeah. And so I think that we all went through this moment where there was just huge uncertainty, and we had this existential confrontation with mortality, which as a guy who's 45 or 55 or a woman who's like, we're not thinking about mortality until we're at a funeral probably, or we see somebody who's like dying and sick. So that was part one. So I think that set the frame where we were like, oh shit, this is like real. And then what happened was we didn't die. Right? We're still here. But what we did see was that the people who did die were unhealthy. These were the immunocompromised, obese with multiple comorbidities, pick the things. And so then I think what happened was is like, oh, healthy means you could be protected against. Now, I don't think we actually thought this. I think this is all kind of going on in the default mode network in the background of our brains. And so we realized that, boy, healthy people seem to do better in under stress than unhealthy people, stress being a virus. And then the third thing that happened was we were all seeking information and we got like a shit sandwich, right? The public health system flip-flopped. Nobody could give you. So all of a sudden, people didn't trust the institutions that were supposed to give us the information that we needed.
Like masking versus not masking, right? Even then.
All this ivermectin, and by the way, which is a real anti-parasite drug that's got like real like dangers to it if taken like off menu. And so you mix all these things together, and people are like, okay, I don't trust the system. I got to focus on health. And so I'm going to go, who are the loudest voices? Who can I trust? And meanwhile, social media has branched into 1,000 podcast, celebrity podcasters and influencer on TikTok and all these things. And so all of a sudden, and then of course, the conspiracy theory mindset in full swing is like, well, they're implanting chips with the vaccine. Whatever it was, is people are like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to do this by myself. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure out this health thing. And that's when you started to see the longevity framing start to pop up. It's like, so my 50,000 foot view is like, this is the building blocks that led to why we're here.
Right.
Now, to answer your question, at 30,000, and we can go all the way down to the ground, but I think at the 30,000 foot view is,
where is it? Is the question. So where is it now?
so when you think about biopharma and you think of Pfizer and Lilly, all these big biotech, just pharma, big pharma, generally people don't have a positive view on big pharma. But in the world of finance, it's a massive industry.
Sure.
But guess what? Wellness and longevity is 4 times bigger than pharma.
Wow.
Okay. 4x bigger than all of pharma. And the last piece of this is that, like you said it in the opening, it was really hard to spend money on healthcare 10 years ago. Like it was really hard to spend $10,000 a year in healthcare. You had insurance, that doesn't count because that's just a financial thing. But to spend money, I mean, you could go to the Mayo Clinic or one of these executive clinics and spend 5 or 10 grand. It was really hard to spend $100,000 in healthcare. Just really, really hard, unless you were like totally off the reservation. So all of a sudden, everyone, there's a lot of mustache twirling, on yachts in the Bahamas with the vitamin guys going, hey, wait a minute, we could like repackage up all this the vitamin wellness, turn it into longevity, and like, what's out there? Oh, anything you want, get a podcaster that's influential, and you can sell anything. People will inject things, take things, IV things. And they're chasing something, and what they're chasing is that kind of ghost that they saw when they had to confront their mortality in 2003. So that's, I think, kind of like how we kind of got here. And and then we can go down to these longevity clinics, specifically what they're doing, why they're doing it, how they're doing it, where's the evidence, and. But I just think that like the highest order bit for anybody who is interested in the category, who's citizen scientist, is don't lose your intellectual curiosity and don't just trust the next person who tells you to do something because they did it. Like that's the whole ball game. Everyone is outsourcing their intellect to somebody else, and they're not doing the primary homework. They're not doing the research. And it's like, why would you do that? Everyone's telling everybody about the peptide stack and the IV protocol, and everyone's just doing it. No one's asking, what's the evidence? Why? What are the upsides? What are the it's just it's a free for all.
So you sort of went through it, but what longevity medicine before the marketing to you was preventative medicine. Our system isn't good at preventative medicine, American system. We like to react to things. We're not very good at holistic. I was a professor at UCSF, found Western medicine to be a little too reactive, especially dealing with young men. And then I went, and now I'm on Yosan University, traditional Chinese medicine, find it to be much more holistic, much more stress, diet, nutrition related, and much more preventative in orientation. And I think that's the way you were thinking all along, even before COVID.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you actually poke at one of the things that you mentioned a second ago, which is we don't have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Think about life 3,000 years ago. Hard to, but just imagine it. There you are in Athens or something, running around in a robe, and all of a sudden you don't feel well. Something's all of a sudden not right. Something was broke, and you went to go find someone to fix it. The healthcare system has always been a broke fix model.
Yeah.
Something's broke, you try to fix it. And so that's the sick care system. Now, the Chinese had a system where, like thousands of years ago, that the doctor would only get paid if nothing broke over the course of the year.
Right.
That was the very first concierge medicine practice.
Yes, exactly.
In the Chinese way. And so there was a mindset millennia ago on the kind of like, how do you keep people well? Zen, Buddhism, and this kind of the mindset, because we didn't know anything about biology or physiology. So, fast forward to today, and by the way, the healthcare system was not, as we know it today, it was not built for individuals. It wasn't built for patients. It was built for institutions and big companies, because it's at scale. So when you have like a small town, think of America in the beginning, small towns, few people, there was the doctor, he knew everybody or she knew everybody.
Came to your house.
Yeah.
And then as it started to scale, and as you started to like think about insurance companies and hospitals, like you couldn't know everybody. And then the amount of money that could be made on, so right now the sick care system is, and you know this, Paul, the sicker you get, the more money they make.
Yep.
So there's no incentive.
Right.
There's no incentive to keep you healthy. So I gave a lecture on preventative care, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years ago, and to a group of people, and I deep dived into prevention, which most people don't do. So there's 5 types of prevention. The first kind is what I'll call primordial or primitive prevention. And that is, how do you make sure your kids make it to childbearing age so the species can survive? So this is like inborn, innate. We don't even think of this, not in the textbooks. It's just a fundamental, right? Part of our DNA. But primary prevention is seatbelts, vaccines, things that you can do that if you don't wear a seatbelt, like bad things can happen. So it's real prevention. Don't smoke.
Yeah.
Secondary prevention is you have high cholesterol and it's genetic. And if we don't prevent that from coming down, do something, you're going to have a heart attack. So secondary prevention is, here's an intervention, a medical intervention to prevent the known thing. That's secondary prevention. Tertiary prevention, and I've got a really interesting case of it right now, is you had the heart attack. And now you've got to put in stents and go all in on lowering your lipids, right? So that's tertiary prevention. And as I was doing this research, I stumbled upon this guy, I can't remember his name, 2018, came up with quaternary prevention. Like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Usually.
Quaternary prevention is avoid the healthcare system because it can make you sick.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you think about that in the context of longevity, all these people are going, you know what? I'm avoiding the healthcare system because it'll make you sick. And it can. I tell people, you got to get out of the hospital as soon as possible once you get in, because bad things can happen in there. But then you have all these people doing all this like off the menu injections, and they're going to wind right up in the hospital. And I've got 1,000 stories to tell on that score. But so I think that primary care really is prevention, and you really have to understand that, your biology, Paul, it's just a bag of numbers. I can measure this, I can measure that. You're just a bag of numbers, right? But the psychology that sits on top of your biology is the driver of the bus of all those variables.
Right.
And so if you just try to fix the numbers in the bag of variables and you're not addressing the driver of the bus, which is the psychology, I mean, you're just chasing your tail. Like,
So
nothing's going to happen.
This is what you feel is the fault of current longevity medicine and marketing. So are you sort of defining for us what biohacking is?
Well, a hack is generally a shortcut, right? I need
Yeah.
a shortcut. That's a hack. Something that makes things faster or maybe better. If you found the hack that makes your email like read itself and then, just surface the ones you need or whatever. Like the hack, I think, comes from like technology. So a biohack is, how can I find a shortcut in my biology? So instead of working out, I can take this pill and I get big muscles. That would be the biohack.
Got it.
Or I'm feeling a little fatigued, so the biohack is to inject or take an IV of NAD that's I've got mitochondrial fatigue. And so I need to like pump my mitochondria with a precursor called NAD. And the hack is, I don't need to figure out like anything other than I just have deficiency. So everyone's selling you on, let me tell you, pick a symptom and I've got the solution for it.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to tell you that I don't have any evidence for it. But boy, do I got beautiful marketing models and people with muscles and beautiful ads and amazing packaging.
I was reading the Substack by Eric Topol on peptide stacks and peptides, beautifully done. And there are 4 FDA-approved peptides, which are amino acids linked together that people are taking, injecting.
Okay.
In this community of longevity, they're all using it off-label because they're made for like growth hormone deficiency and things like that. And then there's a group of them that have no FDA approval that are being injected. They're not even on the radar of the FDA. They can only be supplied as research only, and they're being marketed online as an injectable. It's crazy to me that people would they won't take a vaccine with 75,000 patient trials showing it works, but they'll take this online off and stack peptides based on someone's view of it.
I would say from the everyman right now, just listening to both of you too, because you even said it's crazy. And you were talking about the psychology running the show. And so what I gathered from what you said originally was, I don't know that we trust the medical establishment, right, since COVID. That was a big deal that left us there. Two, what else happened is social media. Exploded. So now I have guys like you and you all over my phone telling me things and educating me on medicine that I never even, I mean, WebMD was America's first look at like the answers, and they were terrible. And now I have medical doctors that talk to me, and that makes me feel a little bit better. But then at the same time, if there's a bit of distrust with big pharma and medicine, then I'm hearing a fresh take from somebody saying, well, let's try this, and here's why. And they give us enough information. So that sounds like it's dangerous for America, because who are we listening to? So just some influence.
I think what happened recently is randomized controlled clinical trials, which have been the gold standard to make decisions, and the evidence in medicine has been replaced by the idiom of absence of evidence is not evidence of absence.
It's citizen science and DIY culture, DIY culture. Do it yourself, like, screw the system. I got this. This is my body. And by the way, I mean, outside of like politics, like, I can do whatever I want with my body and no one can tell me what to do. Now, the question I have, the meta question here that I think is that no one's really talking about is, we all pay for health insurance. If you're doing an experimental drug and you wind up in the hospital, who pays for that? Now, if the healthcare insurance pays for that, that means that we're all paying for that because our premiums all go up to pay for that. So so I wonder out loud, and I there's going to be and there are a lot of people winding up with really bad outcomes, but there's a publication bias. They're not going on Instagram and saying, look at this bad thing that happened to me, because that's a shame cycle, right? So there's a confirmation and a publication bias where you will only post things about things that are great, and look at my great life and look at my jacked muscles. But there's a financial piece to this, which is maybe insurance companies say, oh, you got that from that peptide? Sorry, we're not paying for that. Like, you're paying for that. Now, if that happened, there's probably another industry called peptide insurance that will probably start up, for people to buy. I mean, who knows? But it just doesn't end. And I do think it's an honest question to ask of who's paying for the bad things that happen. So let's just talk about peptides for 1 second. Peptide is a small amount of amino acids. So we are made of peptides. Our bodies are peptides. We are peptide machines. So insulin is a peptide. Oxytocin is a peptide. I've just named a couple of things that maybe you've heard of before.
We've heard of, yeah.
But GLP-1 is a peptide, and GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide. Glucagon's a peptide. Like, the thing that we're taking the drug to, we're just made of peptides. So what I think is important is that when we're talking about a peptide in the world of longevity, they're smuggling in the validity of these things that exist into this other category. And so I would prefer not to use a scientifically well understood term for something that works and is well known. We should call these experimental molecules. We should not call them peptides. We should call them what they are. And I think we have a naming problem, because if you're taking an experimental molecule, at least on the face of it, you understand what it is.
Yeah.
Because the amount of research that's been done on statins, millions of people randomized controlled trials, the amount of studies that have been done on GLP-1s, hundreds of thousands of people over decades, because remember, GLP-1s used to treat blood sugar. The amount of studies that have been done on peptides, there are, I think, 15 people that have actually been studied in any form of rigor, 15 or 16, for these things called experimental molecules. So I want to call them experimental molecules from now on this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need to start, Hafiz, who was a famous Persian poet, said, the words you use become the house you live in.
Yeah.
So I would like to be very prescriptive about the words we use when we're talking about these things. I had a patient of mine say, hey, I've been at the gym. There's this, he said, peptide, and said, I want to inject this because everyone's doing it. They're getting jacked. They're feeling good. And it's just going, everyone at the gym. And he showed me, he said, but you have to buy the vial because this is like a legit company that sells to doctors. It's not one of these Chinese peptides that you find in the gray market. So I went to the website, and there it was, this big website with all these different vials of things that they sell to these clinics. I'm like, all right. And he said, but you have to buy it for me. It's $500. I'll inject it myself, and it'll be cool. And I was horrified, of course, because, And so I asked him, I studied philosophy in college and at Berkeley. And I thought, well, what's the one question I can ask him to maybe slow this train down? So I had to think of I had to go deep into the philosophical playbook. So I asked him, I said, I have a question for you. He said, what's that? I said, how do you know that molecule is in that vial? And he said, what do you mean? It says so right there on the bottle. And this is a reputable company. I said, do we trust it? He goes, well, of course we trust it because and I said, well, I don't. And I think if you want to inject something in your most valuable asset, the thing that if you F it up, like it may be irreversible. Why don't I buy that vial and I'll send it to the company that checks all the drugs that come into the United States for contamination and clarity. So I called the CEO of Valisure, which is a big company that checks for all. And by the way, a drug coming to the United States that you order at Walgreens or CVS or Duane Reade, whatever, if it's contaminated by 0.2%, it doesn't make it to the shelf. The contamination levels to get approved are like 0.02%. They're super small.
Good to hear.
Yeah, and these are injectables, not just oral things. These are things that go straight to your bloodstream.
I call up the CEO, who's a friend of mine. He's spoken at DOC, the event that you referenced earlier. And I said, can we run a test on this vial? And he said, man, we don't really do these peptide things. I mean, we do real drugs. And I said, but can you? He goes, well, we'd have to recalibrate the machine. And we could, but it would cost a lot of money. How much money? $15,000 to calibrate and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, so I call my guy up and I'm like, 15 grand if you want me to prescribe this for you. Pay the guy over there. Let's run the thing. So he said, he's a crypto guy. He had tons of loot. And I break off a little piece of a crypto and we'll test this thing, So we tested it, and then I get an email from the CEO. Call me on this number. I want to go over the results in person with you because you're not going to know how to read them. So in the vial was the peptide as promised, at the dosage as promised.
Okay.
The next ingredient was MDMA.
What's that?
Ecstasy. The drug that people take to feel really good. And by the way, ecstasy increases your release of oxytocin. Yeah, that's the affection molecule that in moms and babies gets released when they're breastfeeding and stuff. So guess what's going to happen when you take that peptide?
You're gonna feel great.
You're great. And you know what you're going to do? You're going to tell all your friends. So the third ingredient was an industrial herbicide that they use to kill weeds on farms in high concentrations. Okay. The fourth ingredient was some random industrial chemical. Again, these are all like in real quantities in that vial. These are not like trace elements.
Yeah.
And then the fifth ingredient was another MDMA psychoactive substance. And then there was like two other ingredients were these industrial chemicals. So like the CEO of the testing company said, Jordan, this is bananas. I've never seen anything like it. And he said, I did some research on the company that, and this company's on, I'm not going to mention it, but a big website, it's where everybody's buying their stuff, or a lot of clinics are, doctors are. And he said, I did some research on the founders of this company, and their company got shut down like 3 years ago, and they just re-popped up with a new company and a new name. And it's like whack-a-mole out there in this space. And these guys are just printing cash I think they're on their big yachts in Florida, whatever, with their big muscles and who knows, but this is what's happening out there. So
Right.
I caution people, beware of injecting yourself with something.
Yes.
And now there's these companies, by the way, I forget what it's called, Maxing or someone sent me the other day, where you can like check the purity of your peptides stack through this website. And this guy will run his analysis of your peptide
Experimental molecule.
to tell you if it's good, great, or not good. This guy has got like zillions of people paying him.
Yep.
And then you can subscribe for $19 a month so that you can get updates in case they find a contaminant and then you can pay $200 a month for like the max plan. Anyway, it's like this.
It's a burgeoning industry.
To me, it's a house of cards. Like this will fall. Like there's a not sustainable. The evidence will come out over time. And I think it's important to say though that because you mentioned it, Paul, growth hormones that get jacked molecules, which most of these people are taking it to get jacked. Our body releases growth hormone in pulses,
Right.
up and down all day. This is what happens. But when you take these things, they keep these levels high all the time, and that drives insulin resistance. So the reason why people take GLP-1s is to lose weight or to fix their diabetes, but it's really about metabolic disease and insulin resistance. I mean, that's the name of that's the whole ball game is insulin. And when you have high levels of
Growth hormone,
when you have insulin resistance, IGF gets secreted, which is insulin-like growth factor, and that is a pro-cancer, pro-tumor molecule. Which is why I can tell you that I've seen many people who are doing these experimental molecules with growth hormones in them, they wind up with these cancers. And it may have been that, look, we all eventually get cancer, but our immune system attacks it, and then we don't get it. So there's like this constant tension in our body where a cell goes rogue, immune system gets it. Cell goes rogue, immune system gets it. But if you start pumping yourself up with stuff that like your immune system can't get it or blows the tumor up like a balloon, and I've got a number of stories where, someone did these experimental molecules on some longevity doctor who knew all the answers. And then they had this massive tumor that like probably would have been slow growing, probably would have got caught early. And now it's like, holy moly, you don't want to be gambling. If you go to Vegas with your money that you earned and you gamble and you lose, okay, you lost. You go make more money. If you go take a experimental molecule and inject it in your body, you are gambling with your health. And if you lose,
There's no second chance. Yeah.
you don't get it back. And by the way, so knowing that they're contaminated, knowing that they cause problems, I'm just gobsmacked that people are flocking to do these things. Now, oh, Jordan, you're just a grumpy old doctor. You're a hater. Like, come on, these things got to have some benefit. BPC 157, which is the Wolverine molecule,
Yes.
Okay.
is usually connected to TB 500,
Yep.
which is and that's the whatever. The guy that discovered TB 500 runs the Gladstone Institute in San Francisco, Deepak Srinivasada. He's been getting all these messages. Hey, you're the guy that discovered the TB 500. We'd like to talk to you. He's like, I discovered that like 20 years ago. It's never really been studied. It's been on the shelf. I wouldn't put that in my body ever until the research has been done. So you have the scientists that have actually studied these things, won't touch them. And I think it's also really important to know that most studies, going back to randomized clinical trials, most studies are done on animals first.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the percentage of studies that are done on animals that show amazing results on those animals? What percentage of animal studies translate to that works in a human?
Probably 5% of studies are translatable.
5 to 10%. So what happens is somebody reads an article that some scientist wrote, and it winds up in the New York Times of, oh my God, this molecule cured blindness. This molecule created this. And it never translates to humans. And that's why the biotech industry, that's why it takes so long to get a molecule through safety and efficacy trials.
I have a story about growth hormone. John Baxter, who invented it at Genentech, was a friend, and it was used for growth deficiency in children. You'd give an injection of growth hormone and also AIDS wasting syndrome. That was the indications for growth hormone.
Right.
And then, of course, it's an anabolic, and it wasn't measured like testosterone. So bodybuilders and athletes started using it as a non-detectable anabolic. And that's where it got sort of illicit and got on the doping agency. By the way, most of these peptides, experimental molecules, are banned from the doping agencies, doping agencies for athletics.
Yep.
So, and then most of them are growth hormone oriented.
Yeah.
I talked to him and I said, what's your concern about these illicit uses? And he said, like you said, Jordan, these are non-specific, broad growth factors. They stimulate everything in the body. They stimulate muscle, but they'll stimulate cancer cells just as fast. And your ballooning tumors is an example. That's what I worry about. That's why I don't prescribe it. It's because it's stimulating everything, not just muscle. And if you have a tumor that's small, it's going to grow faster during your life. And that is not a longevity. That's not a longevity thing for me.
What's the gut check here? What's like the honest everyman gut check, right? So I would say that if you look at elite athletes who are worth hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars, they treat their bodies like their entire livelihood, right? Like their bodies are everything.
Machine.
If an athlete actually injected, something and it fixed their torn knee in 2 months, they would be using it. If these things worked, these guys that have like a team of scientists, they would be using it. Like Achilles heels take a year. Knee ligaments take a year. Nothing has changed. So I think the silence from the elite athlete community is evidence
of efficacy. Yes. Right. So let's talk about what does work.
Yes.
In this field.
What are men missing the most here?
What concepts do work for longevity for you? The Power 9 of Blue Zone. On your Substack, you talk about sleep. You talk about controlling metabolic disorders, exercise, fitness sort of, and then also nutrition, right? These are the Blue Zone things. What works for you?
These are things that are free, right? There's no industry.
Yeah.
No industry around these.
There's no capitalist machinery around those things. Now, I mean, there is a little bit. Look, I think going back to psychology, and since you're a urologist, like men come in with low testosterone, they're like, I need testosterone. And I like, the number one cause of low testosterone in men your age is stress.
Yeah.
It's full stop. It's not like you don't have testosterone deficiency. It's not an organic disease. It's the psychology sitting on top of your biology. So your psychology needs to be reoriented. So what I'm about to go through is an exercise in how do you rethink the way you exist in the world, how you show up. And I'll before I go there, I just want to say back to my philosophy background. So I studied in Berkeley. I was pre-med, and I was a physiology major and a philosophy minor. And when you're studying physiology and you have to take organic chemistry and all these tests, when you take an exam and you're sitting in the room with your pencil and your whatever, every question you're asked has only one right answer. And if you get the wrong answer, you don't get the privilege of taking the next test, and you don't get to go to medical school. So you are trained as a scientist that there's only one right answer to this question. You've given a question, and out of the 4 choices, one's right, the 3 are wrong. So you really get trained in this concept of like, must find right answer to question. But meanwhile, I'm taking philosophy over there, studying Nietzsche and Hegel and everybody else and Aristotle, and they don't give a fuck about the answer. They only care about the question.
In fact, there is no answer.
There is no answer. So I was sitting there thinking, hey, wait a minute. What if you get the right answer to the wrong question? Well, guess what? You think you're right.
Yeah.
Because you got the right answer to the question that was asked of you, or that you, whatever. But you're actually wrong, and you don't know it. What are the questions we should be asking versus the answers we should be getting to the questions that people are handing down to us through social media?
Yeah, I think that's the basis of the quackery of longevity is people think they're right, but they're asking the wrong question.
Well, that goes back to what I started off with, this intellectual curiosity, this intellectual humility. Like you just have to like not want to be right all the time, and you want to be curious. Because remember, if you get proven wrong, immediately after you get proven wrong, you know what you are? You're right again. Because you just got proven wrong and now you're right. So going back to like what matters for longevity and what really works is, so the first thing that I think that is really important is, and I ask my audiences when I give talks, is how many people use an alarm clock to wake up in the morning? A lot of hands go up.
Yep.
So what I'll say is that when you go to Disneyland, if you've ever been to Disneyland, it's perfectly manicured. Everything works. I mean, the lines may be long, but it's this beautiful place that brings joy, and it's like this highly functioning, complex system. And then it's 5 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and you leave. And when you leave Disneyland, you go home to your hotel with your kids and do what you do. Well, Disneyland doesn't shut down.
Mm-mm.
There's a whole new crew of people that show up at Disneyland, and they start cleaning it and scrubbing it and making sure everything's ready for the next day. And then on time, the next day, they open the gates and it works. So your brain is like Disneyland in that metaphor. When you go to bed, all the activity, the metabolic activity from the day before has to get processed. And there's like garbage trucks coming in and cleaning out this metabolic debris from the day's activity from the day before. If you set an alarm clock and wake up before the garbage trucks finished emptying their job, you're leaving stuff. You have a Disneyland that's not clean for the next day. And so what is that? So there's a whole thing called the glymphatic system, and the glymphatic system is the drainage system of the brain's activity. So if you don't let your brain clean that up, what happens is you will process information differently that day. You will eat differently that day. You will look at the world of exercise. Everything's different if you don't have a proper night's sleep. And so to me, it is the most foundational thing you can do. So people say, well, shit, I got to get up early. There's no way I cannot have an alarm clock. I'm like, oh, yes, you can. Use the alarm clock and set it to go to bed, because you will only sleep 7.5 hours. You will wake up naturally.
Yep.
Now, you can set the alarm clock in the morning as a backstop just in case, but I'm telling you, you'll never use it, because you're not going to like not wake up. You're going to wake up after 7 hours. So what I tell people is, when you're on vacation, do the experiment of going to bed, no alcohol, like truly like a pure experiment. Wear an Oura ring and just see how much sleep your body actually needs. Because some people are 6, some people are 6.5, 7.5. But do the experiment of knowing how much your body needs naturally, and you'll find out after 7 days. Like, and I'm like a 7.5 hour guy. If I get a little deficit, I make it to 8. If I do 8 for a couple of days, I'll wake up in 6. But I haven't set an alarm clock in like 25 years.
It's really funny. On this comment, so I was a surgical resident, and I was working 120 hours a week. I know how many hours in a week, 156. 4 hours of sleep every couple of nights, maybe. And it became so valuable, I've now called it like oxygen. It's as important as oxygen for me. And I absolutely agree with you when I remember reading you wrote about the setting alarm clock to go to bed. But if our bodies love to be regulated. Same with kids, same with pets. Keep them on a schedule. And I, as a surgeon, haven't used an alarm clock in about 10 years because I'm so dedicated. And your body will, 7 hours, boom, it's right there. So you feel great in the morning. If you don't feel great in the morning when you wake up, you've done something wrong.
So I think the foundational thing is sleep. You got to get that right. And if you don't get that right, your day will be more stressful. Your testosterone will go down. Everything the wheels like. Then you're looking for an experimental molecule to hack the thing that you should have the simple thing you should have done in the first place. Yeah. So sleep to me is like and by the way, all the studies have been done on shift workers, people who don't get enough sleep. They get more heart attacks. They get more dementia. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You can't hack your way out of sleep.
It's like oxygen.
It's like oxygen. So that's number one. And I think there's lots to look at. You buy an Oura ring or a Whoop or one to track it. Some people get really anxious about these numbers, and they then you can't fall asleep. So you say, well, hey Jordan, I can't go to sleep at 9 o'clock at night. I'm like, yeah, you can. You just start a process where you start. Okay, the alarm clock goes off. Now I'm going to put my devices away and get in bed, read a book, or
train it. Yeah.
So in the same way that you do your peptide stack every day at 3 o'clock, do the same thing for sleep. It's just a matter of how your psychology drives your biology. So that's number one. The second thing, I would say nutrition, but I would say social nutrition first.
Interesting. Feed the soul.
What do you mean by that? Explain that.
Well, it's social nutrition and social fitness. So all the studies have been done that show that the number one longevity intervention is happiness, is your social. Are you enjoying people? And so Aristotle said there's 3 kinds of friends. There's friends of utility, the ones you deal with all the time. There's friends of pleasure, the ones you can laugh with. And then there's friends of integrity, the real friends that like you call, they're the ones you call when the shit hits the fan. And the people, you know, they're both friends of utility and friends of pleasure, but they're like the proper friends. And so part of it is are you enjoying the people you're hanging out with? So I was interviewed by the Wall Street Journal the other day, and they're like, "What are the two things? Just give me two things. That, you know, all these longevity hacks. What are the two things?" And one was sleep, like I just said. And the other one was get rid of the energy vampires. Get rid of the assholes in your life. Right? You have to look at the people that you've had in your life that are your friends or your colleagues or your coworkers. Like you have a certain amount of hours in the day. Who are you spending time with that are there because they've been there, not because they're charging your battery or adding value and true joy to your life? If people aren't making you flourish, you got to get rid of them. You got to cut them out because they are the ones that are going to cause you to
drain your energy. They're going to drain your energy.
Well, drain your energy and have stress. So then you don't sleep well, and then you don't eat well, and then your psychology kind of switches to like, I need to find some, you know, guru on TikTok that tells me to do stuff because I don't know what to do. I'm stuck in my life, and
Right.
and like, you know, I'm a guy with low sperm count, and my muscles, I can't get an erection. All the things, it's like, dude, that's all stress. You gotta like, there's a whole reason for that, and it's not like a molecule. You know, it's not an experimental molecule deficiency syndrome.
There's a cure here.
Yeah. There's a long cut, and it's called figure out who the energy vampires are.
That's social nutrition, and is nutrition, dietary nutrition also?
So I think, and you heard it here first. I've been saying this for years, and now there's all these companies. So everyone's talking about protein. It ain't protein. Protein is not the thing. If you're not working out, you are peeing out the protein. It's expensive urine. Like they're putting protein dust on chips. It's protein because protein causes muscles, and you can see muscles. And guys want muscles.
Muscle maxing.
But let me tell you guys, that's not what girls want. Girls want like a guy that's got like a good head on his shoulders that can actually listen and care and think and be a thought partner and hang out and have a laugh. Not, you know, that's really what I've got 3 daughters. Two sisters. I grew up in that
Surrounded.
World, so.
This guy knows women.
By X chromosomes.
Sure, a good body doesn't hurt, but like that is like probably 10% of what
So
matters.
protein is used for muscle maxing. And your point is it's only going to maximize muscle if you're actually working out and exercising.
And if you take it at a certain time, and we'll talk about creatine separately because that's good for brain health. So dietary fiber, this is the thing that everyone's missing.
Fiber maxing.
I've been publishing stuff on fiber for a while, and I just saw that Vanity Fair just did a big thing on fiber maxing. And now all these fiber companies are asking me if I'll be an advisor to their company because they see that I'm like, now the truth about fiber is obviously ideal to get it through diet, ideal to get it through regular foods, but it's really hard. Humans used to eat 100 grams of fiber a day, as you know, hundreds of years ago, and now the average American gets about 10 grams. So why is this important? Fiber, you need 35 grams a day, and I would challenge everybody: go do an audit of what you ate today or yesterday, or what you're going to eat. You know, with ChatGPT and Claude now, you can just take a picture and say how much fiber, how many grams are in this. Just take a picture of your plate; it'll figure that out. Fiber, it turns, it stimulates your natural GLP-1s, so you eat less, right? Number one. By the way, this means no juices, right? Juices are just taking the fiber and blending it and ripping the fiber off the sugar. Now the sugar goes in, causes insulin spike, and the fiber doesn't really get to do what it was meant to do. You want to eat the fiber with the sugar, which is why when you eat a raspberry or a strawberry or pick the fruit with sugar on it, you want to chew it with your teeth. You don't want to use a blender. Don't outsource your teeth to a blender. Just fucking chew it.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going on around here? Everyone's trying to like shortcut their way. Anyway.
Right.
So, but one big avocado.
It's biohacking again.
8 grams of fiber.
Okay.
Yep.
One big avocado. You eat fiber, your microbiome. The microbiome is the thing in the gut that processes what you eat. The microbiome takes that fiber that you ate and turns it into these things called short chain fatty acids. And the other thing it does is it enables your gut to convert tryptophan, which is made in the liver, but it's an amino acid, into serotonin. So if you just shortcutted what I said, fiber leads to serotonin.
Yep.
And serotonin, 90% of the serotonin in your body is made in your gut. Now the serotonin that's made in your gut cannot cross the blood-brain barrier, so it doesn't get into your brain. But what is serotonin? Serotonin is the happiness molecule. Dopamine Think TikTok, think cocaine, think whatever it is that gives you pleasure. And with dopamine, which is my friend Rob Lustig wrote The Hacking of the American Mind. All these companies are figuring out how do you get more dopamine hits in the brain. So dopamine is pleasure. Serotonin is happiness. So if you have pleasure, guess what you want more of? Pleasure. But if you're happy, you don't seek more happiness because you're happy. So happiness doesn't lead to happiness-seeking behavior. Pleasure leads to pleasure-seeking behavior. So what we're learning is that what is Paxil? What is Prozac? What is the mental health crisis we're having?
Right.
Everyone's taking selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs. That's to keep whatever serotonin you have in your brain there before it gets degraded. It tries to keep whatever you have there longer because we know that serotonin, it prevents anxiety and depression, which lead to all the bad behaviors that lead to all the bad behaviors and lead to bad health. So what we're learning is that serotonin made in your gut through what's called the gut-brain axis. And by the way, great book written by Emran Mayer from UCLA. It's called The Gut-Brain Axis. Shows that all this information is going from your gut into your brain through this other pathway that's not through the blood. And so I think that one of the bigger discoveries that's happening right now and that we're talking about at Doc is that your microbiome in your gut is like foundational to everything in your health. And so if you don't feed your microbiome and you try to biohack it through experimental molecules in your blood, you're missing the point.
Yeah, you're talking cures. You're talking cures and treatments, not patches.
If you want to build the foundations for like a robust, healthy body that can like have endurance and resilience and, through psychological stress and biological stress and environmental stress, you have to have the building blocks, and it's sleep. It's good people around you. It's a good diet with fiber. By the way, if you never ate a carbohydrate in your life, you'd live forever. If you didn't eat protein, you die. And if you didn't eat, fiber, you wither away.
So it's funny, you're talking about of the Power 9 concepts of blue zone populations. You just talked about 2 or 3 of them right there. The plant-based diet is the best for fiber, right? And they talk about nutrition and social nutrition. The centenarians, people who live 100 years old, and these generally do drink wine, and they have a community that is very reinforcing.
Yeah, but Nir Barzilai, who's a scientist at University or Albert Einstein, he studies centenarians. He's got a database of 800 centenarians that he's been studying for decades. He's actually coming to Doc this year and presenting. And by the way, Paul, you should come. And by the way, I'll extend both of you an invitation if you want to come.
Thank you.
Even though you're not a scientist, but it's fascinating. We need an everyman there to help translate. Basically, what is shown is that if you have a centenarian in the family, if you have a grandparent or a parent that's lived to 100, the likelihood that you'll live to 100, very high.
Yep.
So the blue zone concept is like, it may be that these centenarians were going to live to 100 anyway.
Correct.
But I think the foundational things that we talked about, like the Mediterranean diet, everyone says, oh my God, you got to have a Mediterranean diet. That's how you live long. It's a Mediterranean lifestyle. They walk
Correct.
places, they
Right.
hang out together, they drink coffee
Right.
together. It's not just the Mediterranean food. That's one piece of the puzzle that I think is really important.
Right.
Let me jump in here. We're going to do a little format shift because I also want to talk about how this relates in Paul's field and how we can manage and monitor our health through our sex organs and our fertility.
Yeah, so
and
I'm
our
a men's health, fertility, sexual health guy.
Right. And so we're going to get to that, but I want to break some myths here, or at least, see what are myths. And I'm going to give you a couple here, both of you. A myth is something that's gone viral right now, and just give me your take on it. Okay. Both of you. You mentioned Brian Johnson already. Brian Johnson's Blueprint protocol is reversing his biological age.
So the question is he reversing his age?
Yeah.
Jordan?
Okay. Well, after the documentary came out, like 2 weeks ago, he published a new thing that like, I have spent more money on my health than anybody on the planet. I've done everything. He recently had a bad outcome, and which he's not talking about really. But he basically is now saying the only thing you should do is like eat well, sleep well. I mean, he's changing his tune right now.
Wow.
Now the problem is these documentaries are out. And again, this new thing that he put out is on a LinkedIn post or something, and so so what gets absorbed into the atmosphere
Right.
or into the zeitgeist, like blue zones, like everyone thinks blue, like that's probably not even real, a lot of that stuff. But it's in the zeitgeist. So, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, once it's out there kind of. And we have this issue where this information's out there. So he's already backtracking, so he came up with like the 44-point thing that everybody should do now. But if you just if you run through Claude, it's like eat, sleep, exercise, have friends.
Good. The ship is changing direction to something more evidence-based.
I don't know if you saw him at the Enhanced Games the other day. He had an umbrella. Like, he's afraid of the sun.
Yeah,
like,
no, I know.
Go get some sun, people. Like, wear some sunscreen, but don't be like I know a guy that's like a sleep freak, and he literally you can't have dinner with him because at 8:30 he's got to be in bed, and like you have to have like a 5 o'clock dinner with him. And if you make it like your religion to do these things, like what kind of life is that?
Got
Yeah,
it.
no
So
happiness.
Is longevity medicine of this kind more of a hypochondriac formation? Are we creating hypochondriacs out of people who are trying to live longer?
I think the question is why are people seeking this behavior? And I think the answer is because they're not focusing on the foundational building blocks, and everyone's like a little house of cards that's starting to fall down, and they're all searching for hacks to like make themselves feel better. And if you just go back to the foundations, like it takes time.
Yeah, you'll feel better.
Well, I just recently had this spinal radiculopathy thing where I had to get an injection in my neck, and like it sucked. I was in pain and it was awful. And and I'm like, after 3 weeks of this injection, I'm like, I'm feeling a little bit better. And so they said, there's this physical therapist you got to go see. I went to go see him. I've been doing physical therapy every day ever since I saw that guy. And like, wow, it works. You got to put the time and the energy,
Yes.
and you got to do it. And it works. It's like all the athletes again. Like
Yeah.
if you do the things that they know work, they work.
I was doing some stuff on my roof 10 years ago, and I threw my back out for the first time, and I felt like an 80-year-old, right? And I said, I can't. I mean, you're walking hunched over like 80-year-old for 10 days, and you get better. It's like, that's amazing that you throw your back out. And I started swimming. And my back has been so strong since, because those muscles next to that back are so strong. It never happened again. Hope it never will. But it does take work and effort, and it does make a lot of sense. The body makes sense to medicine.
Let's go to the next myth. Let's bust another one. Methylene blue is the new biohacking miracle for brain longevity.
Agreed.
What is it?
It's real chemistry, by the way. So it's a molecule, and it's got niche prescription use. But the truth is in fact, at Doc this year, the emphasis is on brain health and brain tech. Like what's going on with the brain. No one's talking about methylene blue in that community at all. Zero, none. So we don't even talk about it anymore. It's just, this is all just more people that they do the methylene blue and they say something happened. It's anecdotal. And look, it may be proved to be real. So I want to be really clear. I am not a hater on any of these things. The way, if you wanted to identify what's science and what's what we'll call pseudoscience, is science is reproducible and pseudoscience is not reproducible. Science embraces criticism. Pseudoscience is hostile to criticism. If you're talking to someone and you bag on their thing with some evidence and they get hostile, it's not real. Science seeks falsifications. The whole point of science is, I just proved something, somebody proved me wrong. And if you can't prove me wrong, I'm right. That's the basis of science. That's the scientific method. Pseudoscience seeks confirmations. They don't seek falsifications. They just need one person to say it worked, and up on the pedestal they go. Science always includes the risk in what they're selling or in whatever intervention it is. Pseudoscience only talks about the benefits. So if you are looking at some product, service, longevity thing, and they're telling you the benefits and they don't tell you the risks, think of every pharmaceutical commercial about this is going to fix your rash, but may cause diarrhea, erectile dysfunction.
Right. The next 25 seconds is the complication protocol.
That's what science is they're honest about the known risks. Science changes with new evidence, and pseudoscience tends to be dogmatic. New information doesn't matter. This still works. Science engages with their peers in their community, and pseudoscience has celebrity scientists. And science makes conservative claims, and most pseudoscience makes claims beyond evidence. And so fundamentally, as you think about myth or not myth, go through the checklist, and the checklist will tell you if it's real or not.
Okay, next one, checklist. Then I would say is an NAD plus IV drip going to reverse my aging at the cellular level.
So NAD injections, also hot. Agreed.
Go ahead. What are they, Paul?
Nicotinamide adenosine, what is it?
Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, and it's supposed to be a precursor to mitochondrial health. So what is a mitochondria? They're the cells in our cells. They're like bacteria that in our cells that convert carbohydrates into energy through the Krebs cycle. NAD is found in mitochondria, and they're part of the way that you make energy.
Yeah.
So people say, oh, well, if you have fatigue, it must be because you're not making enough energy. That's a huge leap of science, by the way. But it's very simplistic. People can understand that. And so if you have fatigue or you need more energy, then you need more of this molecule.
Not reversing my age.
This molecule is taken by pill, it's taken by injection, and it's taken by IV. So every IV that you get, whether it's in the hospital or at a wellness clinic, not only do you get what they put in the bag, but you get 48,200 nanoplastics of particles directly into your bloodstream. Okay, so if you're getting that wellness IV on the beach, you're also getting a shit ton of microplastics directly into your bloodstream. Now, California put out a law that by 2030, all bags and tubing can't leach microplastics out. So, like, people are onto this, but why would you do anything that was going to put microplastics directly into your brain, in your body? Like, ridiculous. So the whole IV universe is like, again, it's all marketing and
two-edged sword, right? Two-edged sword. We dinged NAD.
Dinging NAD.
But the important thing about NAD is that it never makes it to the mitochondria because your body breaks it down before it gets there. So, like, you can put it in your body. Your body was like, I hope that worked.
Next one. Every serious person needs a continuous glucose monitor.
I would want to qualify what serious means. But what I would say about continuous glucose monitors is, like, look, you don't want to get it's good as a thought experiment. Like, does certain foods really jack up my blood sugar? Some people who have, so I would say if you have any blood tests that suggest that you have metabolic syndrome, this can be helpful. But for the metabolically healthy, it's a worry generator that pathologizes a piece of fruit, really. And but I would say everybody should do it for 2 weeks just to learn about themselves. Like, I'm not against them. I think it's kind of okay to wear it. I did it. I just want to see what it said. But there's not a lot of science if it's bouncing around kind of normalish. I mean, I think the problem is, and even to testosterone, I have guys that come to see me with a testosterone of 380. It's ranged from 250 to 800, whatever the range is. And they're like, my testosterone's low. I need it higher. I'm like, how's sex? Good. How's exercise? Good. How's life? Good. It's fine. 380 is fine for you. But I think people think about, like, blood tests like a bank account. More is better.
Absolutely.
Like, it's not like it's good for you. Like, stop chasing a number. It like, look at the constellation of things.
People don't understand that your body's homeostasis, right? Testosterone is all very homeostatic. It's a thermometer. It regulates itself, and if it's there and all the numbers are good, it's right for you. I always tell men about testosterone. Your sperm count's normal. You can't generate a normal sperm count and be fertile with a low testosterone. And I know you think it's low, but your sperm count's normal. It's probably right for you. It's probably what your body wants.
Let's shift right now with that to what Paul does for a living and how we can biohack into ourselves.
Yeah, I think where's my application here? And I would say this to start, that sex span is probably, I would call,
That's
it's been
a
quoted
term,
in the
yeah.
field. Marie Kira kind of coined it. Sex span is your sexual health. So erections, fertility, sex drive, testosterone balance is sort of sex span. That is integral to health span.
100%.
And I think that's integral to longevity. So I think I have a key in my practice to helping men live longer, which is optimize their sex span. It's also one of the things that men come to us earlier in life with, right? They're coming in their 20s or 30s with sex drive issues, erection issues. So I'm part of this.
That is not normal. Like, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, men in their 20s and 30s were not having I mean, it was like they were chasing every girl they could. This is a modern phenomenon that I think we have to look at epidemiologically, not like, hey, one guy came in with an erection problem. I mean, I don't know if women are having the same issues at the same scale. I know that menopause is their thing that's like lighting up the womanosphere of like, how do we tackle this thing?
The
'Cause that
syndrome
sucks.
now. It's the syndrome of menopause, not
Yeah,
just
yeah, 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 yeah.
and people.
But we should probably name this a young male syndrome of instead of calling it like an erection problem, it should be like, you've got longevity maxing syndrome or something. I don't know.
I think one of the really important books was The Anxiety Generation, which
Yeah.
it was about, if you look at the iPhone, the introduction of the iPhone and what happened with anxiety, and you could ascribe most of what's happening to sex span of young people, and the effect is on anxiety because it will lower your sex drive, right? Anxiety from any source, social media, whatever's happening in their lives, and they have a very different social upbringing than we've ever had in humanity.
Anxiety is driven by like a serotonin deficiency. So like if you really want to root cause it, you got to get to diet, and then social media makes it worse. But I do think that going back to the fundamental question is like men and their sex drive. It's funny. I was just talking to a friend of mine who's a doctor earlier today, and she was telling me about, she was at a conference and some woman came up and said sex is the best longevity drug there is.
So I'm a 42-year-old guy. I walk into your office, or I'm a 55-year-old guy and I walk into your office. Do you ask me about my libido? Do you ask me about my morning wood, as I've heard from Paul? Do you ask me about my sperm count? Have I had a sperm analysis? Is that something that we need to add to the mix? Are you doing that?
Most doctors do not do that. Talking about sex is like taboo. We need to talk about sex a whole lot more. I mean, the amount of kids that are watching porn, the amount of porn that's out there is like compared to the amount of times. So we can let our kids and people do porn, but we can't talk about it. We can't talk about regular sex. So I try to get into more about like, tell me about your relationships. But whether with the guy, your friends, and let's talk about whether girlfriend or spouse or whatever it is, and are you having sex? How's sex? Is it good? And eventually you start to get into those if they're willing to go there, and sometimes you have to push them there. I think the morning wood thing is a Brian Johnson phenomenon, because he talks about like, oh my God, I get 9 erections a night, and like all of a sudden guys are now wanting to measure this stuff. I'm like, dude, just fucking sleep, and we're trying to like quantify all of these things that are making us anxious, that spin the cycle of this hypochondriasis that you mentioned, Paul. It's like we need to like dial back all this noise and get back to the
So collecting numbers and following protocols isn't the secret to longevity, in your opinion?
No, I mean, look, there are certain things that are good to measure. Like, by the way, should you get a cancer test every year? By the way, number one, if you want to reduce your risk of Alzheimer's and dementia by 30% right now,
yes, let's
get a shingles vaccine.
Done.
So shingles vaccines have been proven because we think that the dementia and Alzheimer's related to viruses and related to specifically herpes virus and varicella virus, like get a shingles vaccine. I mean, I can go through chapter and verse all these things that you should do to live long and healthy, but they're not experimental molecules. But by the way, an article came out last week, I published it today, that going to a museum and appreciating art lowers your epigenetic markers and biological aging process the same amount as going to the gym every day and working out. So I think that, we have to like, this fast-paced world, and the more is not better. Better is better. And foundational is the best. And so I think we have to ask, why are we doing these things? And but there's a lot of these little hacks on longevity that we've talked about, a lot of them, but but they're all pretty simple.
Let's take a minute on microplastics, which is in my field huge. And my understanding of nanoplastics and microplastics, and the words are based on the size of the particle in microns. But clearly, since remember, Dustin Hoffman in the movie The Graduate said, plastics, my son, that's the future, plastics. He's graduating, right? He's in Palo Alto. That's pretty funny. But everyone, now we've been able to measure it for the first time. And now we're finding it in every organ. And now all of a sudden, everyone thinks it's linked to everything. And the science isn't there, but the associations become causal, and everyone thinks it's causing Alzheimer's and it's causing it. We don't know any of that. We don't know about the fertility effects or the sexual health effects. We don't know how much of an endocrine disruptor it is, really. But Don't you have some thoughts on that about microplastics?
The number one problem is saran wrap or these really thin plastics. So when you go to the butcher, when you go to the store, you see all these meats and all these things in the deli surrounded by plastic. Like you can buy one of those, or you can say, maybe you can cut up some of that meat and put it in the paper bag. That they give it to you there. So like but microwaving plastic is like the enemy number one. And when you buy food that's in plastics and you microwave it, like you're just putting tons of microplastics in that food. The other one is like a lot of these fancy tea bags that you buy, and they're made out of plastic. There's like fancy microplastic tea bags,
mesh.
cement.
Yeah,
Anytime you put plastic in something hot, the plastic comes out.
it
So you,
leaches.
so you don't want those fancy. Again, it looks good, but not good for you. Water is the other big one. Is in your house. These ceramic filters, and I've listed the brands in my white paper that you can find it on my Substack. But like you probably want to be using like real filters in your house because you just don't know if there's PVC and plastic pipes that where it comes from the street up in your house, unless you built a house from scratch and you know exactly what's there. Obviously, a lot of people have water and they carry it in the
Plastic
plastic bottle, and they put it in their car. It gets hot, it gets cold, it gets hot. They're not thinking about that plastic water bottle while it's in the car. And when you get in the car, it's cold. They drink it, but they don't know that when it was hot, all that plastic got in there. So like plastic water bottles, like try to avoid those at all costs. And remember, the softer the plastic, the more it gets leached in. The other thing is that even laundry. So you're doing the laundry, and you have to take the fuzz out of the lint when you're doing the dryer. You breathe that shit in. There's a lot of microplastics in there. So like wear a mask when you're doing or like be really careful to hold your breath when you're scraping off there's lots of little things that you can do all over the place.
Sure.
So, Jordan, you're focusing on digestion, basically. Is that the main pathway for plastics entering into the body? I know it's aerosols. Wasn't there a study that looked at that and looked at the most effective way to drive it down is reducing oral intake?
Yes, that's right.
So that's why you're saying all these things about.
Even gum has little microplastics in it. Like, I think pretty soon you're going to see like the smart companies are going to put the exact amount of microplastics that are in it, and then the other companies that have a lot of microplastics in it that don't really want to say it, by default, you want to go with the low ones. It's kind of like low fat, low this. That'll probably be coming.
What is the microplastics doing to me?
Well, microplastics interrupts your endocrine system. Again, the science is all being researched right now, but it just disrupts a lot of things in your body. Like your body is like a highly tuned machine where everything's working just right. If you put like something in there, like the gears can grind and that happens and that happens. And like, we just don't know. And so like Paul said at the top, like, is this the root cause of a lot of the problems we're having with mental health? Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But I would say it's microplastics, ultra processed food, and social media are the three things that if we could remove those, we'd be in a good place.
It's funny, microplastics has probably been around since plastics, and the levels may not be very new at all, right? This may have been in our systems for 50 years. We're just able to measure it now, and it is alarming, and we should pay attention to it, but there's science. But so your pathways to does it reduce microplastics?
Yes. By 50%.
Oh, wow.
Carne does the research at Harvard. You can reduce your microplastic by 50% pretty easily with a couple of interventions.
Good. That's
Very
encouraging
good.
because
Good to
most
know.
people don't know that.
Okay, a couple more questions here, and then we're going to wrap it up. This has been a great episode, by the way. Thank you, Jordan. I've learned a lot today. Okay, so if a 40-year-old man is listening in his car right now, and I think I might know the answer from what we've talked about already, what's the one thing you want him to do this week?
I would have him listen to some philosophy podcasts. Start figuring out what questions he's answering and maybe question the question.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
And then, just to kind of flip it to the other side and come full circle to what we started with, which was preventative medicine and not sick care. What would you want somebody under 40 to be doing or not doing that would lead to regret at 55?
I think I'll answer that, which would be you need to realize that your most important asset in your life, in your family's life, is your health. And I know people are starting to realize that maybe as a consequence of COVID and mortality all around them, but the point is where they're paying attention to is what you're trying to change. But they need to realize that, especially young guys, that it's throughout their life, their most important asset they have is their health. and not realize it at 40, but realize it younger, and then do the things that you say and change your philosophy.
Okay, well, women live longer than men, right? We know that.
6 years on average in America.
So, like I said, I've got 4 kids, 1 son, 3 daughters, and for the last, when I was in my 40s, I was busy working, and my wife was busy like keeping the house, the chaos in order. But what I noticed that she did is that she had all of my kids in a book club with her, and the parents of the kids too, and they would do mother, daughter, mother, son book clubs. So there was always a book club going on somewhere. And I realized that as I was over a decade of watching book clubs, I'd come to my house and they'd have wine and cheese, and for the ladies, and the kids would have crackers and whatever. I realized that I didn't have a book club. I didn't have a men's group that I could go hang out with, and like I could tell my wife, hey, guess what? I'm leaving tonight. I got book club. I mean, you can't say you can say poker. So that's one thing, but poker usually involves alcohol and late nights and
Smoking,
cigars.
yeah.
But what I would say to the 40-year-old is like, go start a book club with a bunch of guys, like and like actually read a fucking book and talk about it and try to explore it. What happens when you do that is you start talking about your life too, and so it becomes like, it's not therapy, but it's a way to find a safe space to like talk about the topics of the book, how they relate to real life, and if you get a good group of guys, and this is the social nutrition, right, is, so do a book club. I mean, women have figured it out.
Yeah, and look, I really appreciated what you had to say today, both of you, as far as you keep saying it's like, yeah, you can do this that's physical, but both of you are just saying, look, it is kind of our mental well-being that drives the ship to our health. Yeah. Realizing before 40 that your health matters, you should start a book club. Realizing that not every Tom, Dick, and Harry on TikTok is right or is wrong, and there's just so much out there for us to pay attention to. Doctors like you should be doing more podcasts where we can sit and talk for an hour and a half and actually not just hear bullets, right, but actually have a good conversation about what we did. Thank you so much. Jordan Shlain, I'm going to plug a couple things. Don't Listen to Me is your Substack, correct? And then Doc is, explain what Doc is.
Yeah, so Doc is an event where it's almost born out of the longevity thing, where somebody challenged me and they said, what event do you go to where you get like, you meet amazing people and you learn amazing science that's real? And I said, it doesn't exist. He said, well, I challenge you to start that. It was at a bar in Vegas because we had this awful healthcare conference. And I was like, you know what? Challenge taken. Let me think about. And so I'm in a band. I play music, and my drummer was the founder of Wired magazine, and he's a media guy. And I said, hey, I've been challenged to start this event. He's done a bunch of events, and so we workshopped like this idea where we would have the only people on stage can't be CEOs, can't be marketing people. It has to be an MD or a PhD. They have to give a 10-minute like TED talk, so short, and it's got to like tell you what did they invent, what discovery did they make in the last 12 months that everybody should know about that nobody knows about because they don't have an Instagram page. Great marketing on top of shitty science will always outperform bad marketing on top of great science. So I wanted to put some marketing rigor around great science so that voice happens. So that's what the doc, so doc.health. People can apply to come. There's a rigorous process to see who gets in because it's small.
I do have it on record that you said I could come. Without my PhD or my MD. Anything else?
My practice is private medical.
Private medical. Thank you. Is there a website?
Privatemedical.org. Yep.
Love it. Talk with Turek can be found on YouTube, Apple Pod, Amazon Music. We want people to listen, subscribe, share it with your friends and neighbors, your guy friends that you're doing book clubs with. TheTurekClinic.com, correct, is where you can directly
take care of men.
Talk with Paul. I do encourage. It's like, I see my doctor once a year, just had a physical, but I see you once a month. And so I like knowing that my sex pan is being monitored. And
you got to check up from the neck up.
check up from the neck up. That's a great way to end. Thanks, everybody. We will see you on the next one.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks for joining the Talk with Turek podcast with hosts Paul Turek and Rob Clyde. Talk with Turek is produced and recorded in South Pasadena, California, in association with Galaxy Media Ventures. Executive producers are Jennifer Harris and Rob Clyde. Today's episode was produced by Max Flora, engineered and edited by Drew Unser. For more information or to book an appointment, whether in person or virtual, visit Dr. Turek online at theturekclinic.com or call 888-TUREK-MD. That's 888-887-3563. Subscribe to our show wherever you listen to podcasts and watch us on YouTube at Talk with Turek. And thanks for helping us advocate for men's fertility and sexual health.